Today I'm going to be talking about Blade of the Ruined King. At the moment this item is really good on a lot of champions because it fits well into the current meta. So we're going to have a look at the champions it does best on and why this item sometimes isn't the most optimal. Even though it's good, it has times where the enemy team isn't stacking enough health to make it the best item for that moment. So to begin with, we're going to get rid of a couple of these champs where you're not going to be building it because it doesn't really have any synergies within the kit. Things like mages, rarely, like most of them won't build it because they don't really have anything which benefits them with it. Tanks, for the most part, also don't, unless it's a tank which has some sort of attack speed scaler. You're very unlikely to see it. Poppy and Trundle actually can use this item. So look, we're gonna put Maokai, Mordekaiser. I think because like when you go because this is not an option, and a lot of these champs you just won't build it as an option. I think you'll put the AD threats in D tier, even though you won't build Bork as an option on these champs. There, it's better than building it on the mages, like the ones beneath here. Things like Volibear, possibly. Not where you're wanting to build Bork and Volibear, but it's more of an option than the ones up here, ones down here. Can't speak today. Right, I think that's a decent chunk of the champs already gotten through. Yeah, a lot of these are pretty self-explanatory on why you won't build the item on them. They don't really have the synergies or the kit doesn't work with it. Bork Divine Syndra Victor. That's a theory craft idea, right? Don't do it. It'd be terrible. Please, you'll plague someone's game and it won't be good. Okay, so we've narrowed down the list a significant amount already. Yasuo is going to be the first one I talk about. Yasuo can build Bork. It might be his best first item in the top lane in certain situations where you're running the Bork Iceborne build. Bork Iceborne Yasuo is better than Shieldbow if you're building it in the situations where it is good. So, for the most part, it's going to be Shieldbow, but it can work, definitely. Bork Pantheon, in my opinion, is probably his best build, where you go your Bork into your Bork into your Eclipse, or you pick up a Dark and then go Bork. But you can go Eclipse first. I think it's one of his best, if not the best in the slot. Teemo. I don't really see AD Teemos anymore. Teemo seems to be very tailored towards his AP builds these days. Bork Teemo doesn't really exist, so I'd consider it very bad. Jax builds this as a first item, usually. This or Divine Cinderer. Both are pretty good. Divine Cinderer looks to be his best first item out of the two, but yeah, Triforce or Frostfire. It can work. It's probably his best third, maybe his best second. We'll have to see how Ravenous is performing after the nerfs, but it's around there. So it can definitely work on Jax. It's probably one of his best. Nasus won't build Bork. I think I put him in the D tier. Silas also won't build Bork. Manamoon AD Silas doesn't really exist. I think his passive has some wonky AD scaler where it's like really high, but it's not enough to merit him going it. Trundle builds this item a lot from what I remember. Am I lagging? Possibly. Trundle. Yeah, Trundle is probably around B8 tier. You want to focus on getting your Triforce usually. Triforce into Hullbreaker is his best build. Triforce into Triforce Bork, Hullbreaker. You want to be a split push threat on Trundle. It is one of his best. Trundle top got massively hit by the nerfs towards Trundle Jungle recently though, so it definitely hurt him. Bork Garen doesn't really sound like much of a thing. I haven't seen it, so I can't really give my thoughts on it. Bork Gwen, they used to be, when Gwen got first released, people used to go AD on her, but we've luckily come away from that and no one does that anymore. Akali, the same kind of thing here. AD Akali. I'm pretty sure Ravenous first Akali was pretty good for a while, but I don't see it. I don't see it continuing to be as strong as it used to be with the nerfs to the item. So I'll put her in. I'll put her in the E tier. I don't really see it. Someone like Fiora though can build Bork. I'm pretty sure Fiora's pretty good at using Bork actually. There used to be a time where Bork Fiora was a lot more common, but Ravenous, Divine Cinderer, Gore Drinker, stuff like this kind of just overwhelm the item at the moment. It's an option and it can work, so I'll put it up here. Yeah, Tryndamere was someone who used to build Bork. Mostly Ravenous though first, into Gale Force or Kraken Slayer. Not really a Bork user that much anymore. I'll put him in the C tier. Vayne. Bork first, Vayne is probably her best build in the top lane. Maybe Shilbo though. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's Shilbo actually by a significant margin over Bork. I think it's because people go Bork in the wrong spots when they're playing Vayne. Vayne is a really good Bork user into like really high health stacking teams, but when you need the survivability, yeah, Shilbo is definitely her best. But yeah, the places where you want to build Bork are when the enemy team is very high health stacking. The item isn't anywhere near as good as people think it is when it's not into a high health stacking team. I'm going to make a video later on this week where I talk about tanks and the problem with tanks. It might come out tomorrow, so when this video goes live. Yone is pretty good at using Bork as well. Kind of the same as Yasuo, where in games where Iceborne is a good second option, Bork is a fine first. But for the most part, Shilbo is usually better, so I'll put him next to his brother. Camille. Bork Camille used to be a thing. I think that was mainly when the PTA Camille builds, but I think because you're a Triforce bound first item, a lot of the time, you don't tend to see Bork second Camille's either. There's a lot of good options for Camille second, so it's another one of the can works, but you don't really see it. Bork set was one of the biggest bait things for a while. Everyone was going Bork set, and it was so weird because they were building it in games where Bork set was not the option, or it was not the thing to go, where like Stridebreaker or Gore Drinker exceeded it massively. Even now, Bork is still built as set's first item when things like Titanic, Ravenous, Gore Drinker, Stridebreaker, Hullbreaker, even Hullbreaker are better first options. So I think it's bait. I think I will consider that a bait item. Wukong. I don't see Wukong's building this Bork that much at the moment. Divine Cinderer or Ravenous into Divine Cinderer, or Divine Cinderer into Ravenous seems to be his core thing. Then you go into like your Clavers, Moors, Chempunks, Sterix, Shojin. Not really seeing any Borks there. I'll put him in the C tier. Alawi. I don't think Alawi builds Bork whatsoever. Shen. Unless you're Expatu, I don't imagine you're building Bork on Shen either. Unless you're going some sort of weird wits end on hit Shen build. Yeah, no, that doesn't really exist. Riven. I don't think Riven builds Bork as well, because you need the CDR on Riven. I don't see it either, so it's very unlikely. Bork Riven, yeah, it doesn't really exist, so put it down here. Aurelia. I'm going to say Aurelia's best item is still going to be Ravenous, even after all the nerfs as her first option, but oh no, it isn't. Ravenous is actually fallen quite a bit. As a second option, though, Ravenous is pretty good. Yeah, Bork into Ravenous seems to be her best build. You can also go Bork into Jackshow, but Bork, Ravenous, Jackshow is her primary core. Both being nerfed will hurt her, but as long as you're going Bork, Ravenous, Jackshow, you're pretty damn strong. It is her best in slot, though, so I will put it up here. Rengar. I don't see Bork. I don't really see Bork Rengars, so I presume this isn't really that much of a thing. Nah. Kale. Okay, if you're going AD Kale, which does work at the moment in the correct games, then Bork Kale is pretty good, actually. So you're going to go your wits into your Bork, and then you can go like Phantom, stuff like this, Kraken. AD Kale is a pretty flexible, has a pretty flexible build path. You can also go Shrouder, so you get the slow on the waves as well. Definitely consider Bork Kale. It is one of her best I'll put in can work, but it's definitely a high can work. Or I'll put in one of our best. If you're playing in the correct spot, it is one of their best. AD Cannon. I wanted to check whether this exists because I know they uncapped his E attack speed at one point, but from what I can tell, no, not really. It looks pretty tragic if anyone does try to go at I as well. Bork Akshan. I mean, Akshan will love the Storm Razor buffs from 2-3 days ago. Storm Razor Akshan was actually pretty good. Akshan's like a hybrid utility marksman if you need the utility as well, because you can build stuff like RFC, Storm Razor. He can raise people. There's a lot of things you can do with Akshan, and he's a pretty strong top laner. You just have to be really good at playing him. Bork Akshan is pretty decent actually. Yeah, it's a good second, first, third item you can go at in most of your build paths. It is one of their best. Khaled. Bork Khaled. I've seen some Bork Khaleds, but with Ravenous being as good as it is at the moment on Khaled, Ravenous into your Eclipse or Ravenous into your Jack Show will probably stay as Ravenous into Eclipse for the moment. Ravenous into Gore Drinker, so but there's options there. Bork Khaled though is probably like a B tier. It can work. Maybe C tier. Renekton. It is one of Renekton's best items when you're going the Prowler's Claw build. You can also go with the Gore Drinker build, so you have a lot of options there. Ravenous is currently his best first item. You can go Bork. Bork is his second. You go Bork into Prowlers or Bork into Jack Show. Probably say it's Bork into Prowlers for the moment, so it is one of their best. Singed. Why is Singed here? Gangplank. Why is Gangplank here? Okay. That's, yeah, you know what? You're not even going in detail. Bork Aatrox. No, not really either. Bork Jace. I think you can maybe go in as a last into a really high health stacking comp, but it's very unlikely. When you're going things like Eclipse and Shrouders, you tend to have enough tank killing potential, and your tank killing item, usually past that, is something like Cleaver. So, not really. Tahm Kench. I didn't place Tahm Kench because I know of the AD Tahm Kench. Yeah, Halo Blades Tahm Kenches. I'm gonna say it doesn't work, but people don't even play it anymore. Very unfortunate. Udyr. So Udyr got changed with his AD builds recently. They're nowhere near as strong as they used to be. Ooh, AD Udyr is not performing well in the top lane at the moment. Bork is doing pretty badly as well. Yeah, you want to go Ravenous if you're playing Udyr top as a first option. I imagine Tank Udyr will become his best build again, but for the moment, it's pretty bad. Warwick. Warwick goes... a lot likes the Ravenous Jack Show, but I'm pretty sure Bork Jack Show works as well. Ravenous being nerfed again. You'll probably actually go Bork into Jack Show. Or Bork into Syndra, Bork into Titanic. There's a lot of options there. It is one of his best. I would consider it probably his best in the slot. Yeah, I'll put it as best in the slot. Olaf. I know Olaf can go Bork. I've seen a couple of Bork Olafs. It does work. Olaf is just strong at the moment, so a lot of his other builds will just outperform it, but it can work. Quinn. Don't really see... I've seen one game of Quinn and it went Ravenous first, and they played it mid lane. Bork Quinn is probably her best build from what I can see. Nah, Kraken definitely, actually, never mind. Yeah, Kraken, Gale Force, Prowlers, Shieldbow all outperform Bork. It can work. I think Quinn desperately needs rework, but we'll hope and see. Like the Ari Swain ones. Shyvana top's pretty gone at this point. 47% win rate. Yeah, doesn't really exist. Bork doesn't perform well in the top lane on Shyvana either. I'm gonna put her in the... I'll put her in the C tier. It's just bad. It can go down to the T tier. It's that bad. Argot doesn't build Bork. Yorick won't build Bork either. I don't really think Yorick has the option to go Bork. If Yorick's ghouls procced on hit effects, then it would be good, but we don't. It'd also be nuts if they did, because you could go fix like Wit's End, Nashers, I imagine. You could do some interesting things. Nah. I think Nah can go Bork into a health stacking unit, but even then Divine Center is probably a better option. It can work. It's an option. So Bork. Bork is really good in the current meta. It works well into all the high health stacking items, but where Bork falls flat is when the units start building a lot of armor. So you have to itemize into things like Cleaver, Eclipse, where you can get your armor pen going, and stuff like Sure Elders is really important. It's a good first item, and you'll mostly only build it as a first item, but as a second, third option into high health team comps, you can run it. So that's why overall tier list on Bork at the moment. A lot of these champs are just pretty strong in general, which is why they're good abusers of the item. So cool. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.